G'day, friends and fans. Welcome to Dave Talk Stuff. Now, of course, it is a little confusing. Maybe you're expecting me to say mgtow, but mgtow, manosphere, and other movements, such as the men's rights movements, should not be collective under the spanner of the manosphere, I believe. It should be correctly called by what it is, anti-feminism, or a backlash to feminism. And it is spreading under Gen Z. 1 in 5 Gen Zers sympathise with Andrew Tate. That may be something that bothers mgtow, but it is a reality that we must acknowledge. Now, of course, imagine, right, for a minute, a world that is fair. We wouldn't need to protect our rights. The government would do that. The government would respect our rights, but they don't. They respect the vote. They respect voting blocks, labels, boxing, pigeonholing. It's very hard to pigeonhole men who go their own way. That's why they promote Andrew Tate, to organise the manosphere so that they can turn it into their own voting bloc. But it is not something that Gen Z is interested in. But Gen Z has seen the memes and have lived in the broken homes, and they knew how much propaganda it took to convince women, because they're not idiots. They knew since World War II, the left has been pretty much dogmatically controlled by Marxism, who has made it their life's mission for multiple generations now to destroy the institution of marriage. The Gen Z don't want to be slaves of a system. So while Andrew Tate does appeal to some, I would say the media is deliberately overstating his audience and reach, and is in fact trying to dismiss mgtow. So don't be dismayed by the statistics. I am only the messenger. Now, of course, we all know who's to blame. The boomer. And the boomers are dying off. And of course, Gen Z do not care. They do not like grandma. They do not like grandpa. They do not like their great-grandparents, most of whom are although most of people alive these days do not have 4 generations, but there are some who do. But unfortunately, many people in my generation, X, are just as dumb as a boomer. So, however, Gen Z is smart. They can tell a Gen X from a boomer X, and they know that people who glaze Paglaza are not on their side. Of course, I've mentioned it many times that anti-feminism is not just a men's issue. It is a feminine issue. Women do not want to be sex toys of other women. They want to be men's sex toys. They're heterosexual. Then they know what they want, and they know how to get it. So there is, of course, within the manosphere, those who are willing to service the needs of the 304 to get the serviced by the 304. So the manosphere is broad, but it is based on the resurfacing of an old book called The Do's and Don'ts for Wives. I don't know who published it or how it spread, but it's mostly spread through underground message boards for some reason. What a shock. It was published in 1913. I'm surprised they haven't labeled this the far-right extremist Nazi handbook. Because it says things like, don't quarrel with your husband. Oh, no. See, what most people don't understand, modern feminism, of course, has its own handbook. Of course, this is not a manosphere handbook, but this is what the ADL is basing the whole handbook idea on. Of course, the ADL is a fascist organization. And for those who don't know, fascism is the socialist government merging with private corporations to create a sustained monopoly, where the government grants licenses to monopolies. The licensed monopolies in turn fund the government. The government carries out social programs, and the monopoly get to hire as few or as many people as they want, and have exclusive license to exploit the market and certain resources as long as they support the government. This may sound very familiar to you all, because it is communist China in a nutshell. So whenever the left accuse you of fascism, my friends, they are confessing. But Gen Z increasingly is saying,
screw your feminism.
Whether it be male or female. Now, of course, you may want to discuss this. There aren't that many watching right now, but I'm still going to press out the link, hoping that people will know, hey, I'm opening up the panel, and I'll keep talking for a little while. See if any of you want to come on. Send you. Is there anybody on Discord? Hey, Discord, is anybody on? Why don't you light up? Why aren't you lighting up? Something's wrong. Why aren't you lighting up? Because you want friends? Yes, who's online? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Guess it's too soon for most people. Okay, just so you know, maybe we'll work out a time and I'll do this once a week for an open discussion and just do the rest the normal video way. We'll see. We all know feminism is a diseased mind, and of course, back in 1924, the ADL actually commissioned an ethics study into the rise of anti-feminism. Of course, they called it the rise of misogyny, and the study was carried out by the Guardian. Well, also research was done by by the Conversation and the King's College of London, none of which are right-wing, so therefore everything they did was taken with a grain of salt by most. But since then, more reputable companies have done studies that found indeed anti-feminism is spreading amongst Gen Z, and it is a combination of social media phenomenons, right? Gen Z is exposed constantly to the propaganda about the manosphere. So the Gen Z, who are more skeptical than most generations, have done their own research. They found that this is not a traditional masculinity pickup line artist script, but in fact a genuine movement, which is not. The majority of you out there aren't political, right? You merely seek alternative narratives or a lifestyle that minimizes your risk of exploitation, right? We see this in many countries where men are increasingly refusing overtime, refusing to buy expensive brands, to invest in their own hobbies and own habits and own pleasures, rather than satisfying the needs of a canyon, which you can throw a kyber into and it will never feel that pass. Now, of course, the manosphere has alternatives, right? There's not just Andrew Tate, who's a pickup artist, although he seems to now be trying to morph into some men's right advocate because it gets him on various podcasts. But deep down, all right, there are many men who are going their own way. Some of them have political, some of them have social, some of them do pop culture, some of them just do your hobbies, right? These are men who decided that, nah, I'm not going to get married. Or they're mostly former husbands, former um, abused victims of the court, and they decided they're not going to be abused victims of the court system or the feminist dominated court system, I should say. So many key factors are driving anti-feminism amongst Gen Z. One, the social media phenomenon, right? Algorithms promote certain ideologies to every viewer, right? And anything seen as misogynic, sexist, or radical is deemed by the algorithm. Anything negative, as you've seen, I've changed titles often, trying to get around the algorithms not recommending my videos. People have told me, yay, they like my videos, so I keep making them. Though more of you told you won't believe this, but this is why likes are important, right? Tell me how many people really watch the video, because most of the time videos are downgraded, and I've had more people tell me they've seen my videos that, well, some of my videos got lots of views, but not others. And yet the click rate is high. So definitely people are clicking on them and the reviews aren't being counted. What a shock, right? So it's is what it is. We have to deal with it, right? We all know YouTube hates mgtow, but they also hate TERFs. And the problem is the trans exclusivity radical feminists make a lot of headlines, like J.K. Rowling. And so they are often mistaken for anti-feminists. And Gen Z actually takes a lot of the rhetoric of the radicals and turns them into memes, such as the transformation of the radical figure of Emily as a good little citizen, dragging young men away from protest into a young girl promoting the British lifestyle. And Gen Z has embraced Emily. And you'll start to see more and more Emily memes every day. So, Gen Z, seeing J.K. Rowling speak her mind, and J.K. Rowling saying, oh, you too can speak your mind, speak out against trans. So they do, because many men in the see that trans is nothing but the feminization, demonization, and sterilization of men, forced sterilization, right? Parents are forcing their kids to be trans. Teachers are forcing their kids to be trans, saying, 20% of you in my classroom are trans and you just don't know it yet. So, like it or not, the manosphere has influenced Gen Z. They promote anti-feminism, they give ideas to young men, and though they promote dating, they also promote fitness, economic concerns, and often give young men a discussion forum in which to launch their free expression, as opposed to the suppression of free speech that occurs on every social media platform, even on X. Maybe not as bad as Blue Sky, definitely nowhere near as horrible as Facebook, but still, they ask questions, move around, and eventually they will come to us, right? In their movement, or in the movement of Gen Z. We don't recruit, right? We don't force anybody the ideology. We don't have a handbook. We don't have the means or the financial unity to launch anything or fix anything right now. But even if we were to, say, take over X, I mean, you look at the impossibilities you face, right? After Elon Musk took over X, They passed all sorts of laws to make sure they could still control the content, but they are far more. So every platform, right, you make is going to have the same rules as X anyway. So the only free forums are those on the fringe, like 4chan, but or Reddit, although Reddit has mods in most of the manospheres now. So again, this is why they come to our videos. So we are welcoming because we want to educate, we want to enlighten, we don't want to dominate, control, or instill fear. We want to liberate. And that's where we get to the social and economic shifts. Gen Z is being deindustrialized. They have no jobs. They have job insecurity. Feminists, however, are promoted over them into corporate world, and they get the education they need to do that, whereas men are demonized and often excluded on the basis of race or age, not just gender. So they immediately start looking for alternatives, something to fill their time. Videos do that. Videos bring them to the manosphere, because eventually they will hear about mgtow from the many, many streams of propaganda thrown at them, and eventually they'll figure out that it's propaganda and start looking into mgtow on their own. I'm not saying previous generations are stupid. I'm just saying Gen Z are the first to have a upbringing from cradle to current day in social media. So they are more social media aware than previous generations. So they have the natural tendency to know that if they're ever presented with ideas they're not familiar with, they will look them up online. They are far more likely to use a search engine than previous generations. Now, of course, we need to teach everybody that we do have the world's information on our fingertips, even if it's censored. All it takes is the will to go through it and use it, and eventually find and promote videos like this. It's most important. I'm not asking you to exclusively promote me or exclusively to subscribe to me, but liking, sharing, and subscribing to mgtow channels. We need lots of voices. We need so we have people who have lots of search results and can come to and become a part of a chain of mgtow education where we pass and on and educate each other. And whether or not misinformation, well, you believe in misinformation, it is a talking point, and influencers tend to profit off misinformation. Figures like Andrew Tate have often been promoted as misinformation, whereas we recognize that all pickup artists, all men, from whether they be Andrew Tate or Matt Walsh, who promote the idea that you are a service to a woman, no, right? Now, there's two kinds of anti-feminist that are positive and healthy, I think, for now, right? If you point out others, I will gladly change my mind. But for now, we have mgtow, which is men who go their own way, no dating, no cohabitation, no children, no entanglements. If you have previous entanglements, you minimize your contact with the female entanglement. And you educate your son as to your side of the story. But you also have the trad wife movement. Now, we must recognize that fact exists, and that these are men who look for and only marry women who hold traditional beliefs. Of course, that is getting harder and harder, and there are lots of misinformation because women lie, and they're protected from the consequences of their actions. Anybody else who commits fraud would go to jail, but not when you use fraud to trick a man into marriage or to have children with you, or worse, to raise someone else's children as your own. But Andrew Tate is somewhere in the weird manosphere of the pickup artist, the hump and dump, the use and abuse, whereas Matt Walsh is in the so-called manosphere, but in reality, he's a influencer trying to mislead you into being a provider, and that being a good little provider makes you a good man. Ha! Yeah, as long as you're providing to a woman, of course. Andrew Tate is also a provider to women. You've often seen him with women. You've often seen him with multiple women. He often has entanglements. So you definitely say that within the manosphere there are lots of grifters who merely want to sell you dating advice, or fitness programs, or take advantage of your economic situation to get your last $5 out of you, and sell you a course on how to be a better man. Yet most mgtow do this for free, or at least for the hope that you'll sponsor their channels in return. But nothing, we're not putting out there $400 courses. We make fun of those grifters. We point them out to you each opportunity when they come across. But it's always right that most beliefs do not come from necessity, right? Most people reevaluate their beliefs based on necessity, right? And that feminism, in the eyes of Gen Z, the majority of Gen Z men believe feminism has gone too far, is a net harm to society, is ignorant of men's rights, men's issues, and in fact uses political clout to suppress men, to make sure that women get an advantage in education, in politics, in finance, women to get artificial protection from women from the consequences of their actions, right? All at the expense of men, right? Men are taxed, men earn more, men are taxed more, and women want the transfer of wealth to them to achieve some sort of equity, when in fact there are many, many areas where women have an advantage and there is no equity to be heard or seen in action. Religious and cultural factors. Many religious communities promote what's called a trad wife lifestyle based on religious beliefs. And of course, most of them, whether it be Islam, Christianity, Judaism, almost all religions, Christianity and Islam in particular, promote anti-feminism, but so does Hinduism and many other religions. Right now, Hinduism is in a private civil war where Hindu women influencers are trying to destroy the patriarchy in India. But Buddhism, they have a private secret, double secret prohibition of talking about feminism, but in reality, feminism is spreading through Asia like a cancer of the brain. But of course, another cancer of the brain is the noticing. If you notice, I did not say Jews promote anti-feminism. No. You look at everything. Where does feminist propaganda come from? Where does it originate from? Who sponsors feminism? Rich Jews. They use feminism to manipulate the stock market. They use rich Jews to destroy private companies. They force hiring practices, and of course, with family leave and women taking over human resources and taking all the top jobs, they pretty much force companies either to go bankrupt, either by suing men for sexual harassment, bullying men, leading to, or the fact that the more women you have, the less productive your company becomes, because each woman individually is on average 31% less productive. Oh, I love that statistic. I'm going to beat that one to death. But most men cannot say, shut up to women, and that is a big problem. It is a problem that won't go away. It's a problem that won't be cured until more men learn to say, and walk away. And what is it? Oh, sorry. Start again. A lot of men learn to say, and walk away. Right? Whether you're whichever manosphere you're in, you've got to admit that you have to be able to say ash out to a woman and walk away, no matter what, right? It's not just walking away. You can't help in this society to deal with women, right? Unless you live in an exclusive all-male community, you are going to encounter women. Now, MGTOW is different from most of the groups mentioned in the manosphere lists because MGTOW is a genuine movement of men going their own way. It has gained traction and increasingly, right? And Andrew Tate is not growing. MGTOW is growing. MGTOW grows based on the fact that more and more men are disillusioned with the primary driver of their enslavement, and that is the family and divorce court, right? Men are quite happy to get a job, build a house, build a home, build a community. Women destroy it. And once that trust in women is gone, men go their own way. They want to do their own thing, live their own lives, no longer participate in modern society. And of course, there's the immediate backlash against feminism, right? The feminist movement of accusing all men, right? Many accuse the movement of being corrupted by corrupting Western society by third wave feminism. I tell you what it's always going to be, right? As soon as you give a radical movement an inch, they take a mile, right? But third wave feminism introduced and pushed transgender ideology, originally called metrosexual, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Then, of course, they brought up, they hijacked a pseudo-sexual movement called transvestitism. That is where men gain sexual pleasure by dressing as a woman, sometimes for sex with a man, but predominantly some of the top transvestites were heterosexual men. It used to be a thing done by male performers when there were no female, when in countries, particularly where females were banned from performing on stage, right? Particularly in the Victorian era. It's not a modern phenomenon. But it became a pseudo-sexual movement through the 60s. But it was a men's liberation movement that died off very quickly and was buried in under the weight of feminism. Because originally, women hated men dressing up as women. Some still do. Now, most boys don't even get to the marriage stage these days because they're already used and abused by modern dating. You know, the manipulation of and the monopoly on sex, where women, right, will chase a small percentage of men, leaving most men unable to get a date or let alone sexual contact with a woman without paying for it. It is called the dating market for a reason. You are not dating a woman for the purpose of courtship. You are buying her time. You're not first, you're last, right? And you pay just for her time. There are instances where Instagram models were starting off at $50, some going as high as $50,000 before the crackdown. And of course, they still do offer their services as escorts, but they no longer publish it. And of course, this is where you get into the phenomenon of reels, showing off people dancing, young girls in various costumes dancing. Some of them are professional cosplayers, but a lot of them are, most famous, Paris Hilton, right? Socialites. There's always been prostitution called socialites, where rich women would go to your parties if you made them richer. And, of course, part of the service of inviting these women to parties is that they bring young girls with them for sex. They are basically madams or sex objects themselves, such as Jane Fonda. The whole concept of dating has been corrupted and co-opted by industries for a long time. Flowers, jewelry, makeup, chocolates, pretty dresses, you name it. It's been around since courtship rituals were done away with in the 17th century by the Victorian era, crushing the ambitions of men under the heels of overwork, underpaid, and forcing more and more people off out of communities into tenant housing, where there were mostly men working in factories, and the only chance to get a woman was to go out into the country for a weekend visit. And often, even if you got married, she was already a dumpling with 3 kids. So the average woman went through four husbands. More men died. Yeah, men were dying in wars. Men were dying in coal mines. Men were dying on the job. You know, and these professional wives were just sitting in tenant housings, often, often getting married to pay the rent, but they're also working as prostitutes. The Victorian era was so corrupt, right? It makes the modern era look sane and safe. But there are subreddits like Sub mgtow, which were banned for promoting hate and hateful ideologies. That's, of course, propagated by the ADL. The ADL pressured Reddit to ban a forum because some guy said, you know what? I really hate women. And you're not allowed to express opinions anymore. You're not allowed to like or dislike or hate something. Man, there are lots of foods I don't like. There's hardly any hate, I could pretty much say, if broccoli is well done with cheese, I like it. But most people can't cook Brussels sprouts to save their lives, so I say, yeah, I don't like Brussels sprouts, but they do give me a certain satisfaction because if I eat them, you know, and of course that's the thing, right? You're not allowed to say, oh, I like chocolate and I hate strawberry. No, no, no. The strawberry lobby will come after you. That may sound like a joke now, but trust me, this is where we're headed. We're headed to the point where you're not allowed to have any negative opinion, right? You can only have the prescribed opinions of the ADL. I mean, the state. And the women's, of course, who's the ADL and who's behind them? Well, the UN Women's Rights Movement has their own council in the UN. So, do you see any men's council in the UN? Do you see the unions lining up to take care of their male workers? Or protect the jobs of men? No. No, no, no. They're selling you out for the greater good. What's the greater good? The largest monopoly in the world, right? Labor unions get to have their monopoly on all labor, so you have no choice, right? You can't be an actor unless you join the actors union, and they can trample all over your rights. There's no state protection. And if the state tramples over you, the union won't protect you because you're an individual. They only care when it reaches, and this is the problem, right? Marxism is based on protected classes. It's a class-based system where the classes are based on your race, gender, and sexual identities. And more, it's going to break up into smaller and smaller groups. There's going to be ongoing civil wars and endless conflict. Because if they solve any problems, they're out of business. And literally, trust me, they are a business. Karl Marx was in business in selling ideology and still is. The Marx Foundation still runs socialism. I think the International Socialist Organization is registered in England as a non-profit run by the Marx Foundation. They're rich Jewish lawyers, but there are famous Marxists who have not been lawyers, of course, but yeah. But while those who oppose feminism are seen as manosphere, I'm telling you, a lot of them are women. I don't mind, but I think we still need the overall separation where I think when it comes to men's rights, it should be in the hands of men. It should be, uh, you know, I don't deny the fact that people need organisations to protect rights, but there should be no privileges for women. I think that's because remember, when it comes to women,
you ain't first, you're last.
and feminism is all about
You like eating red carpet, tough guy?
Yes!
Say you like eating red carpet!
I like eating red carpet!
Giggity.
all about their pussy, man. It's all about their pussy. And of course, eventually it comes to lesbianism. It all comes down to power, wealth, control, transfer of wealth, transfer of power. And in order to have the narrative, of course, they rely on the fact that men do build wealth and will. I mean, we've heard famously how Belinda Gates stalked and forced Bill to marry her. We heard now that Mackenzie Bezos forced Jeff into basically an agreement where after a certain amount of time married, she will take half his wealth. This is where we're headed. More and more women are going to do that, right? And the government, as men stop marrying, are going to find ways to basically exploit you, and they're not going to let their grift die. Okay, none of feminism. They will try to find a way to force you into relationships. They'll try to force you into cohabitation. They'll talk about the housing crisis. Trust me, if I can think of these things, they've already thought of them. Okay, they are not. They've been planning this for a long time. They've been at it for a long time. They've brainwashed generations of women. Right, the number of anti-feminist women are still slow to grow and slow to make an impact. But at the end of the day, right, the base out there will always, right, will always cooperate, right? When you're in a group like that is not based on religion, right? This is not a religion. This is not a business. This is not a club, right? We're not charging you membership fees and we're not selling you a handbook, right? We're not having MGTOW courses on our YouTubes. We're not, and more, right? We're making it sure and made it clear, right, that we're not out recruiting and telling people you have to be MGTOW, right? Like, I'm anti-feminist, all right? I know a lot of people in the MGTOW movement are predominantly anti-feminist, right? This is your personal choice. I am here to educate, not indoctrinate, right? You got questions, you got proof, you got alternatives. If I'm wrong, I love the feedback. What do you think? How far do you think? I'm not going to, if you dispute that MGTOW or sorry, if you dispute that I'm wrong about MGTOW, go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong about MGTOW, right? Where I've gone wrong, right? A lot of people, seem to comment, but I know sometimes if you're too passionate with your comments, they're not going to make it past the YouTube censors. Rumble's a bit less restrictive, but if you swear too much, they're going to also drop the hammer. But for now, the predominant number of viewers is over on BitChute, and I get most of your comments late, usually after I stream. Sometimes it takes days for them to process the streaming, and I don't see you, and I don't see your comments for days. It is what it is. I think BitChute users are already aware of this. But if you're Gen Z, what do you think? Or do you think Gen Z is getting more aware and more awake and probably spreading? How fast do you think they're spreading? Because I'm not going to say they're not spreading, and I think they're spreading mgtow in their own way, and they're not always calling it mgtow. I think manosphere may be a word of propaganda. Do you think we should not use it? Do you think talking about the manosphere just makes everybody think we're Andrew Tate and PUAs? What do you think? Because I just want to present the truth about the propaganda machine, that it's not always the government, but it's definitely organisations like the World Economic Forum, which includes fucks like King Charles, who's a cuck, he chases married women, he liked the fact that his wife was with another man. All these things, man. He's a horrible person, right? He shouldn't be king, right? He should have been just, once upon a time there was standards and morals, he could, you know, but society, he has to reflect society. So he's a fucked up unit who loves Islam. So no, he does not reflect society, right? Most British do not love Islam, do not love their king, but they are caught between the rock and the proverbial hard place, in that monarchy is an institution they know nothing about, yet it's part of their daily lives and part of their daily ritual to watch the monarchy and have a good old jolly laugh. Unfortunately, they don't realise what an impact these nonces have, but of course it's a distraction from the government, who are even bigger nonces. The establishment are not on your side. Everybody knows it. It's just, what do we do about it? And walking away slowly erodes their power. So more and more people walk away. And nonsense like this is just going to die off long before Gen Z are just going to walk into power. But remember, Gen Z, you don't have power for long, right? Every generation only has a short lifespan, right? You may think, oh, I'm going to live for 60 years. I'll be mgtow forever. Yeah, but not everybody's going to be mgtow, and not everybody's going to be mgtow forever. I'm sorry. A natural movement is that generations only have power for about 20 years. Right? Boomers had a lot of power because they were born early and had kids late. Right? Boomers had the long run. It ain't going to happen no more. Right? Sorry. Since boomers, most kids born since the boomer period have been to teenagers. So those generations have short runs. Now, this is the first time, right, since Gen Z, where the number of teen births is lower than the number of births of over 35s have had more children than teens. But it's the in-betweens. The women at their most healthiest are the least likely to have children. These people are so sick. They don't care about the health of their child. They don't care about the outcomes on society of their actions. They don't care about the impact of their actions on the child. They think they're actually saving the world and making it a better place. They don't believe us when we say you are nothing but a tool of the establishment. You're propagandized. You're institutionalized. You're a Stockholm victim of the Marxist indoctrination machine. The unions are a net negative on society, and they can't believe it. No, they think the left is up and the right is down. Yet on the Freedom Index, it's in fact, the far right are the most free. That's why the left hate it so much, because the left is a product of Judaism. Judaism is the matriarchy. It is and always has been the worshippers of power, gold, wealth, and privilege. Well, they say the 5 pillars, the 5th pillar being service to the Almighty, but to them the Almighty is actually a great single-eye, single-legged demon with 3 horns, and it demands sacrifices every day. So that ain't God, man. They ain't worshipping God, okay? Neither Islam or the Jews are worshipping God. I'm going to get myself into a lot of trouble for that. But let's face facts. There are a lot of people in this world who deceive. That ain't worshipping a God. If you have to deceive, if your movement has to deceive and lie about it, that ain't that's satanic. I don't care what you say. There are some things I won't argue with you, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, thank you. But I'll talk to you all day, and if I'm wrong about mgtow, I will accept that. But I will not accept that some people have bought it so much into the religious propaganda they are not interested in the facts. But for those who are interested in the facts and stayed along with me, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. Hopefully, some of you will actually come along, or I'll reschedule. All right, I'll do a stream on my Sunday, which will be Saturday night for most of you. We'll see. We'll see if enough people can come for live streams daily. I'll do live streams daily. If not, I'll only do one live stream at a time where most of you are available. So we'll see. We'll see. Since most of you talk to me on Discord, I'll see you over there at some point, and you can let me know what you think. See you all later. I really appreciate it, and hope a few of you just click the thumbs up. How really it breaks the algorithm, man, because they're forced to recommend you to same people in your circle of watch lists. Otherwise, the channel can't grow, and we have to grow mgtow. So we can't, if we're not going to go out and actively recruit, which is a good idea, by the way. I don't believe that active recruiting is a good, and that good. It's just financially funding the platforms, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to encourage them to exploit us. So yeah, the only way we can organically grow to get into people's search results if you press that like button. Thank you. Bye for now.